And okay, just a sec. There's a sharing button here. Help. Where is my sharing button go on YouTube? Help, anybody?
Mhm.
I got a live going. I can't find my sharing button. Copy video URL. That's okay. I'll do that. And post it on Facebook. Okay.
I'm sure they change user interfaces every week.
Yeah, I think they do it on purpose, I think,
Stays the same.
So events. For some reason I can change the event. Okay. Okay. Post. Sorry about this, guys. They just have, I had everything well organized, but all of a sudden it just disappeared. Okay, so I think we're on now. We just close everything. And let's let everybody in. And Eric, would you mind doing the honors? Okay. So you're now co-host. Okay, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Crypto Hour. Today is Friday, the 10th of the 10th of May, and we have a special event planned for today. So as we discussed last week, we are going to talk about Cardano, not just Cardano in general, but we're going to use this as also a tip to show you how to do due diligence on projects, because what's important for Cardano, for Ethereum, it's important for all the other projects, because every blockchain needs to have some building blocks in place to be able to operate. So we'll dive in, first of all, into the history of Cardano, how it began, and then we will be talking about every different building blocks of blockchain and see how Cardano tackles it differently from other projects. Now, we are very lucky, as you know, to have Jonathan in a call, and generally that ends our call. Jonathan is a Cardano specialist because he runs a stake pool in Cardano, so is what is called at SPO. Is right, Jonathan, isn't it? So we'll be running this together. So I'll introduce you. I'll be like an interview style. I'll ask Jonathan questions, and then I'll let him, let the resident expert talk to you about Cardano and what it means. So, Jonathan, thank you for agreeing to do this for everybody. First of all, let's take it really from the beginning. Okay, so we're going back to early 2014 when six very bright individuals, were working together at Ethereum, and we're trying to set up the rules to actually work this project. And we had, some very famous names, like you must have heard of Vitalik Buterin and, Charles Hoskinson. They are the ones mainly we are talking about today, but also Joe Lubin and Gavin Wood, that then set up, Ethereum Classic and Polkadot. So what was the at the time, Charles Hoskinson, which is the founder of Cardano, was CEO of Ethereum. So what was the difference of opinion between the different founders that then led to the split, both in 2014 and then later for other reasons? Jonathan, mic is yours.
Yeah, I think that there was just some very strong philosophical differences between these incredibly bright minds right at the beginning that caused friction to come up. So particularly between when you're talking about Vitalik and Charles, they had very different approaches in terms of how you should drive the new technology of blockchain. So Ethereum um, was pretty much set up to be a open and permissionless blockchain system, very similar to Bitcoin, but with new functionality from smart contracts. And Vitalik wanted to have everything as open source, free, available for everyone to use. Whereas Charles was very much more seen as we need to actually work with the world as it is already, um, create a regulated a method of being able to conform to regulations, that we can actually engage, the existing operations of the world, enterprise, and so on and so forth. And so that sort of working with the world and creating a new world were the sort of differences that I saw, and that led to conversations that split out in terms of their coding approach as well. So when it came to actual development and choosing tech stacks, Vitalik was very much build fast, break things. Look at the Silicon Valley way of doing things. They changed the world. They were disruptive, and that's what Vitalik wanted as well. And Charles again was the opposite approach. No, this is a financial, sledgehammer. We are here to create a foundation for all of enterprise in the future, and so we need to have the slow, methodical approach. We need um, the same systems that are put in place in banking industry and in heavy aerospace and military applications. And so the approach, the technologies that they chose, the speed they wanted to operate at was all very different. And I think that naturally led to when you've got, I mean, that group you mentioned there, there's so many brain cells in there floating
Amazing.
around spare that give me a couple and I'll be happy.
Yeah, and then the split up and over, when there was this meeting to actually there was set up to create a company for Ethereum, and then as you discussed, there were a really strong argument that led to Charles Hoskinson being ousted as the CEO of Ethereum. But the interesting thing that you're talking about then, the approach and how the programming, going down to the basics of the programming language. And as you said, the language that Cardano was built on and was chosen then from the Cardano Foundation to go forward is not the easiest to work with, but offers different functionality from the one that's been used in Ethereum and in other projects. So can you explain first of all what they call? One is Solidity, the other one is Haskell. Can you explain what these are and the main differences in functionality between the different projects? But this goes to the core of how the blockchains are designed, and so the advantages or disadvantages will be then brought forward in everything that's run on these let's say infrastructure projects. This is how I see layer one blockchains.
Yeah, so Solidity as a language is much more accommodating in terms of a developer. So when you're starting to code something, if you've got an easy on-ramp, you've got lots of tools, lot of familiar syntax structures in the way that the code is put together. If you're coming from other languages that are already massively mainstream, then Solidity is a much more comfortable language to get started with, and so that then really sat well with the build fast and get things out there approach. So as a developer coming in, you're really comfortable just working with that instead of what ended up being the base language of Cardano, which was Haskell. Haskell is a much less widely used language. It has a very very strict way of putting your code together, and through every stage of it, every time you want to do something to test out what you've just written in code, it goes through a validation sequence that actually ensures that there are no bugs in it. and the maths sort of built into the Haskell language enforce the rules that it has to be pretty much bug free. So it's strongly typed functional language that you have to be able to work in that sort of philosophical mindset to be able to take it on. And there's lots of things that you just can't do that you would do naturally in Solidity or other languages. And that's a restriction. And so people would, struggle to just pick that up from scratch. Whereas, with Ethereum projects, it's much more easy. And so that's why,
Yeah. Can you tell us some of the so where else Haskell is used in the whole wide world?
Yeah, so the Haskell project itself was born out of the academic field, the academic enclaves in Oxford, Cambridgeshire. They've got people who are again similar sort of minds, early really massive adopters in the early days of computer science, all ended up lecturing or teaching, and so out of that sort of environment, that's academic environment, a new way of programming that actually was far more fault intolerant came about, and that was then adopted by the people in the know who really looked to the established academic sphere as a place to build a technology on. So the banking industry, a lot of the large exchanges and work done in certainly the finance sector in the UK and Wall Street, I believe as well. I can't think of specifics, but they will choose Haskell as the underlying language because when it comes to having fault-free transactions, which is essentially what you're dealing with here, you need to have full assuredness. So the banking industry is the first ones really picking up at scale, and aerospace are the other industry that use Haskell liberally as well. So there was a project even this last week that's being talked about in the Cardano space because Charles Hoskinson, the founder of Cardano, has been watching Haskell developers being hoovered up by certain pockets of the industry that weren't interested before, and there was a big demand for Haskell developers to go and work on this aerospace project that's now revealed that they're working on artificial intelligent field scanning for the battlefield. So they'll be able to pick up and differentiate between good actors, bad actors, to be able to track movements of troops, and all that sort of approach. When you've got lives on the line, you've got really sensitive, the risk for failure for having a friendly fire incident is so huge that you can't trust it on go fast. Experimental approach. You've got to go slow, steady, and Haskell again was chosen for that. And so Haskell is the base language within Cardano. On top of that, you've got Plutus, which is the smart contract extensions really that help transform your Haskell code into code that then runs on chain on Cardano blockchain.
And the reason why this is important, just to make it clear to everybody, just again, maybe the difference in approach between what you were describing at the beginning, like Charles Hoskinson and Cardano building for the future more than for immediate results. So not something that would bring users straight away to the chain, but something that would be able then to run projects for the real world. So in particular, for one of the building blocks of blockchain that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, talking about the financial part, and the moment that then this will be, as we all believe that will happen in a matter of years, that whole financial systems will be run on chain. The difference between, and this is why we started talking about the programming language. So the difference between what's happening in the Ethereum world, where we're all seeing during the last bear market that we've had kind of like on north of 10% a year being stolen from the Ethereum blockchain, pretty much, by hacks and scams and everything else, compared to the extra security that offered by this Cardano approach. And that's I believe it's one of the main differences of kind of the slow and methodical approach, and with with lots of the technology based on peer review as well in Cardano, and where it's not making a difference maybe right now at this moment, but it will do in a matter of months and years to come.
Well, I mean, it has made a difference to date, because when you've got so much percentage of the hacks being by criminals taken away, or bad actors taking away people's inheritances and pensions and all the rest of it, which is sadly what is happening. If you look at the Cardano ecosystem, there has been zero hacks from within the ecosystem. The only sort of major loss that Cardano holders have really suffered is when they've been interoperating with other chains through bridges. And unfortunately, it's always been at the sort of Ethereum end of things that those problems have come about. And the other evidence for the stability of the language and the infrastructure is we've had zero downtime since 2014, when the chain was first put live. There's been no stoppages. The transactions have always kept flowing. They've been slower, which again is the Cardano way, but they've never actually stopped. The chain's never had to collude all the operators together to do a reboot like we see in Solana, unfortunately. But we don't have that that massively high throughput at this stage, at this point in time. What we have got is sufficient throughput to handle all the traffic that is thrown at Cardano. And again, that sort of approach of just we build slow, we build at the pace, or at we build in the capacity for where we are at, and extend it upwards. And one of the significant differences from a technical perspective, running a pool, is that on Solana, if I need to run a node, I need terabytes of data storage to actually hold a copy of the Solana blockchain, even though it's a young chain. On Cardano, it's 200 gigabytes for the whole blockchain. And that sort of slow, methodical think about it. Okay, what's coming on chain? How are we going to store it? Let's limit the amount of data flowing into it, because that becomes a significant cost in terms of running your chain. And when you've got in mind environmental factors and technical abilities for these nodes to be run in developing nations, then you're considerate of those things, and you restrict, you set the pace much more hesitantly than you would on a new upcoming Ethereum clone that blitzes everybody and claims a billion TPS or whatever.
It's funny because you're talking about that, it's almost like what people don't see. It's like how a blockchain is supported in the background. And, being around Cardano, there have been examples of people running a Cardano SPO on a Raspberry Pi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right up until the last iterations of the node, Raspberry Pi has been a perfectly good platform for running nodes 24/7, with great success. And, Raspberry Pi is was it 50 quid or something for the entry? $60. Get yourself a little computer that can run a Cardano node in its entirety.
Yeah, incredible. So I wanted us to move on to now, as we move on to the real world. If you can imagine, for everybody that maybe is not as au fait with blockchain and cryptocurrency. So projects like Cardano, Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, they're all seen as like infrastructure projects. So if I am like an entrepreneur, I want to launch a project on the blockchain, I will consider all these offerings and thinking, okay, which one is the best ecosystem to operate in? Now, can you just briefly talk us about the difference between releasing a project on Cardano as opposed to releasing a project on Ethereum or Solana, and what could be the considerations that as somebody that's not married to a particular technology in particular would have to consider when choosing basically a playground?
Again, I think it's quite important to know your market, know your requirements for how you're going to make your project succeed, because there is a very different approach to a project that's got high pressure in terms of I need to be the first and I need to get massive market adoption to have any chance of success, as opposed to this is, I'm already competing in a field of multiple actors. I just have to have a fundamental advantage over them in terms of my unique selling point, which might be stability, security, scalability, interoperability. Those might be far more important to you on a project that ends up choosing Cardano than or Polkadot over something like Ton Network or if you're launching a meme coin, sure, go where the market is already. It's a great playground out there. But if you're launching the next financial operating system for the world, you probably choose a much more conservative chain like Cardano. And I'm saying all this, and that's the approach, that's reality. But to be honest, now the abilities, the capabilities within the Cardano ecosystem are as strong, if not stronger, than any other chain for building out, rapid prototyping, rapid building as well. We've now brought in a whole load of languages and tool sets that are far more familiar with developers than they were, just a year ago. I mean, again, that slow, steady approach, you have to think about the differences between Ethereum as a project and Cardano, for example. Ethereum was a smart contract language from very early on. It was adopting a whole load of technology from or approaches from Bitcoin, like proof of work. It wasn't doing anything half as challenging as Charles decided to do with Cardano, and that was another differentiator. Ethereum was already being really successful, doing a great job. Charles loves Ethereum as well. He didn't want to, just come in and step on the toes of that project. He was hurt and he wanted to do something new that was a different direction. And so that's when it came to starting with new languages and all the rest of it. But now we've got libraries and alternative languages running on chain that we never had before. So Mesh.js, which is JavaScript based development language, there are most of the world can use or has used JavaScript if you're a developer. And now we've got a framework for building applications, rapidly building applications on Cardano in Mesh.js. We've got Aiken, which is a more of a sort of got the and C is the start of the language name. I can't remember what it's called exactly, but it's much more like Rust, which is a young language, very, very powerful, and is sort of taking the market away from languages like C and Go even. So yeah, we've got Cardano, we've got a version of the node being built in Golang as well, which is very trendy language. So we've got all these new up and coming programming languages, developers doing things their way, all in the meantime staying binary compatible with the base layer, which is Haskell and Plutus. So yeah.
And the reason why this is important, because probably one of the the biggest bottlenecks in crypto and blockchain is attracting enough developers to work on a particular blockchain and so a particular technology. This is why maybe Ethereum having the numbers has attracted a lot more from that point of view. But the thing is that Cardano and Polkadot as well have had the highest development on the blockchain for years now. And so how easy, you were talking about nowadays, it's possible to use all these different programming languages now. How easy is it now to build on Cardano without being comfortable with Haskell or Plutus? And so how easy it is to attract developers that are not willing to spend 6 months of their life to learn a different programming language, but they just want to take their expertise that they have now and just going with the trendy new industry in cryptocurrency.
It's it's very easy now, really. You've got developers are one thing, and we've certainly got the ability to handle most languages that are out there now. You can come and build and get a long way into development before you start to hit blockers and to stretch your learning. But from the other end of things, we've also got because the chain's approach and thought is about, okay, how do we onboard enterprise? How do we bring commerce scale into the ecosystem? And we've got projects funded out of IOG. IOG is Input Output Global, still officially called Input Output Hong Kong, because that's where the foundations of IOG were set, and that is the technology builder within the Cardano ecosystem. You've got Cardano Foundation as well, which is runs the treasury, and Emergo, which is all about business relationships. But IOG have built most of the technology, and so they had a project called Marlowe, which is aimed at being a abstracted domain-specific language, which means that you don't have to know the ins and outs of Haskell at all to use to build fully working on-chain smart contracts. So instead of having to be a developer, you've almost got a no-code approach. So you've worked with web builders and things like that, where you've got a content management system, and you can just drag things on page and assemble things like that. It's a very similar system, except instead of dragging paragraphs or image and graphic onto into your page, you're actually pulling in logic statements. So if this happens, then do this. And you can add in, I want party A, party B, and party Z. And if these two agree on something, then something will happen to this one. And it's all very much drag and drop visually assembling your smart contract. And this is only to do with financial transactions in particular, because it is this domain specific. So it's got a narrow field of operations. But if you can find a solution that will, or you have a need for a solution that can be just stay within that financial transaction part of it, then yeah, you've got out of the box a no code solution that you can just come in and build without being a developer even. If you're just looking at business logic, then yeah, you can build out smart contracts that you can then just publish on chain really successfully. And I was in Toulouse at a builder conference a couple of weeks ago, where they've got 100 developers, hardcore developers from the ecosystem. I managed to scrape in under my stake pool operator guys. I am a developer as well, but I've only done a basic course in Haskell, so I do understand the differences in terms of the language to the ones I'm familiar with, which is much more in the realm of Web 2, PHP, and so on. But at this builder conference, we had 100 developers, really intelligent. To get in, you even had to pass a test by signing a slightly odd transaction on chain. And once you were in, then you were just accepted as someone who was keen, was interested, was on the right mindset. There was no large sponsorship, no big commercial organizations preaching at this event or selling things at this event. It was very much more about how do we build things, how do we build things right, how do we share the technology. And so the Marlowe team were there, and they were asking for help because they are in with IO, but they're now moving out into their own entity, and they wanted help and feedback from the community on where they go. And I've forgotten how I went down this rabbit hole, but there's so many things being talked about, so many applications, so many new languages that it's a rich playground for developers coming in now. There really is.
That's great. So we're talking. So the way we got into it, if you forgot, you were just like, how easy it is now to attract developers into Cardano that are not familiar maybe with Haskell, and they don't really want to retrain and learn a new language. Now,
Yeah.
if we go into now, let's go into the building blocks of a blockchain. So imagine that you created a new blockchain, the Jonathan's blockchain, whatever. So you need, like in Ethereum, in Cardano, or in anything else, you need some building blocks into that blockchain. So if I can mention, we'll go through it one at a time, and you can tell me as well what's the difference between what's in Cardano and what's in other projects. So if we start, for example, for the first thing that's needed, whenever you start a blockchain and you have a token in it, you need a wallet that can hold that token. Now, can you give us some examples on, both the Cardano technology in terms of wallets and what's available elsewhere?
Yeah, so wallets are crucial. They're sort of the first point of contact between you as a human and your blockchain. They store your assets, and certainly within Cardano, we've got a great selection of wallets out there. The one that I use is called Eternal Wallet, and that's um, really uh, fully functional in terms of it exposes you to every part of the transaction process. You can really delve into what's being crafted in terms of what you're about to sign, and uh, and that openness, that transparency, that evidence of what's in your transaction. It brings confidence after a while. Once you start to understand how it's put together, it brings you confidence that there's nothing being slipped into your transaction that you're not aware of, and um, and that sort of openness approach is taken by most of the wallets in Cardano, and that's quite a bit different to the sort of the MetaMask that you're probably most familiar with. A lot of the time, you're getting multiple transactions popped up at you. You're if you're regularly on chain, you just have to sign these to get out to the next stage. And the exposure of what's actually happening underlying is difficult, and so that's where you end up with um, wallet draining attacks and things like that happening. And so when you're looking at choosing how your users are going to interact with your app, then you're really concerned about the wallet ecosystem. And I must say, in Cardano, it's really, really healthy. We've got Eternal, which is the sort of largest community built project, independent of any of the original foundations, but they do collaborate and work with them. And we've got much more user-friendly, simple wallets like Yoroi, which was the sort of the oldest light wallet in the Cardano ecosystem that came out of the Emurgo team. And that lets you do everything you need to. In fact, I see Archer on the call. She's still a fan of Yoroi. And that does everything you need to. And the beauty of it, particularly in Cardano, is that you can change your wallet at any point you like, while maintaining the ability to access the same assets. So long as you've got your seed phrase, you can import that seed phrase into any of the wallets that I'm mentioning here. So Eternal, Yoroi. From the IO team, we've got Lace Wallet now, which is another light wallet, and that's really slick. It's starting to work really well with all the apps out there, and it's got a particular superpower that will come along, which will be tying identity into that sort of thing and creating a sort of reputation-based DApp browser as well. So you'll have certified DApps that have been audited by according to certain standards by IO themselves. We've got Vesper Wallet, which is a very exciting one. You see that at conferences if you use Cardano at all. You'll have little promo cards from guys like Husky, which is the meme coin on Cardano, and on the back there's a QR code. And with your Vesper wallet, you can just scan the QR code, and it will instantly drop a whole load of free assets into your wallet. And that's a sort of now interactive way that you maybe were concerned about choosing Cardano previously because it didn't have all these abilities, but smart contracts came into Cardano just 2 years ago. 2 years ago in September, and since then the flood of applications, flood of features out there has just grown and grown. Ethereum obviously has got a much longer track record, so it's got a much bigger ecosystem. But we're doing really well.
I'm just going to put a screenshot so that you can have a look at it just very quickly. So this is a Cardano cube, which basically highlights all the projects that are now kind of like in Cardano. You can see, I'm not gonna stop on any of this, but you can see how many there are. So this is just the utility project. Then you go on to the other tab, which is the NFTs, and again you got another load of projects. So there is quite a lot in the last couple of years that have been launched on chain. So plenty. If you want to delve into it, then go into cardanocube.com and you can see everything there, and you can click on any of those projects that will take you to their website and find out what's going on. So these are the wallets that we talked about, really interesting. But then obviously if you have more than one token, you need an exchange, decentralized exchange where you can, buy and sell these tokens. So again, now we all familiar maybe probably with Uniswap or PancakeSwap on the Binance Smart Chain or other. So each blockchain has, when it comes into existence, one of the first things to launch is a DEX. So tell us what's the difference again from Cardano DEX to Ethereum based DEX or Solana based DEX or other blockchains.
Yeah, in terms of functionality and interacting with the DEXs, it's a very similar experience, very slick. You can choose your token pairs and just sign the transaction with your wallet. Underlying though, one of the biggest differences between most chains out there now and Cardano is that Cardano chose to use UTXOs, unspent transaction outputs. And this is the approach taken by Bitcoin. So this gives you a whole load of abilities that are hard to grasp at first glance. Ethereum and most other chains use an account-based model compared to Bitcoin and Cardano using a UTXO-based model. And you can imagine the differences between them being a bit like the bank transfer system in the banking industry and the cash system. So with a bank transfer, you are asking your bank to send money from your account to this person, and the bank will say yes or no based on their understanding of how much money you've got in your account. And so they've got this sort of global view on how much is in your account, and they will let it happen or not based on how much money in it. Whereas with cash, if you turn up to that other person, you don't have to talk to the bank to say, can I pay you with this? Because you've got it in your hand. It's tangible. It doesn't need third party to engage in that transaction. And that's how a UTXO works. You're effectively, you've got certainty within that transaction that you only need to operate peer-to-peer. And so any assets that are presented within that transaction don't need to go back to a third party to verify that global state that they've got enough money in their account, because actually I've got the cash there. And that's how UTXOs, that's the main function, that difference between the two. And so the DEXs have the ability to leverage these UTXOs in much more capable ways. For example,
from a user's point of view, does that translate into like a higher security?
Yeah, much higher security, because you've got there's all sorts of hacks and race conditions within account-based models that can be exploited to find ways of trying to double spend. So effectively, if you've got two transactions happening in the same moment of time, that's when effectively one person could perhaps double spend what's in their wallet. And so until you've gone back and checked on the global state that that double spend is actually occurring, it's hard, you can't prevent it. So you need to wait for that global state to be updated. With UTXOs, there's far less risk of that because you've got the cash in hand. And so if you're giving a £20 note to this person, then as soon as they've got it in their hand, that's all the surety you need. And so it's very similar in the UTXO world.
In a way, the way I like to see it is almost like, if you think about gold and just exchanging something that's got like a hallmark, so you can have that hallmark is different for every bit of gold, so it's traceable. So you actually almost like exchanging something of a physical nature, and you can check that little bit of Bitcoin or that little bit of Cardano came from this person to that person, and it is a specific bit with its own hallmark. Whether in Ethereum, it's just like, okay, it's just like an account, and you just change the balance into accounts.
Yeah, very much. That's a good analogy. And with that model, you can craft a lot more complex transactions. So on the Cardano blockchain now, it's regular to see transactions that have got, I don't know, 50 recipients, transacting in multiple multiple token variations, all within a single transaction on Cardano. So if I wanted to send an NFT to everybody in this call, I would only sign one transaction to do that, and that would cost me, maybe 1.7 ADA to send that. We've got transactions that have got, I think the record is something like 1,200 outputs in it, and so you've got vast amounts of ability of power built into that transaction model just within a single transaction, and your costs for doing that, for operating like that, mean, if you try and do that on, trying to do 1,200 transactions on Ethereum at peak prices, that's $20 a pop. That soon eats up your your ability. Cardano 1.7 ADA to do that same thing.
And it's funny because this is a metric that's often misunderstood by people that look at maybe transactions per second or something like this, where exactly what you say, one Cardano transaction can hide, like 100 outputs or more in a single transaction. So it's a comparison that you can do like for like with something where like Ethereum, where you have to do one transaction per output, which is completely different. Now, the other thing now that we're going into, so this again, the financial infrastructure that needs to be in place in every blockchain. So again, I think this maybe is one of the places where Cardano may be stronger in terms of technology when we go into DeFi. What's the difference now between DeFi built on Cardano and DeFi built on, again, Solana, Ethereum, or other layer one projects?
Again, you've got that sort of security stability built in from the ground up. So when you're starting to look to operate in DeFi, you've got far more confidence in the tech that you're interacting with and the platforms you're interacting with. You've got that same level of assurance in any of the exchanges, pretty much any of the exchanges that you would if you're operating on one built by the founding fathers of the ecosystem. And so DeFi in particular is where there's a lot of potential. And the beauty of DeFi is that you're cutting out that middle layer, that banking infrastructure layer that is sucking away our retirements. You're replacing it with functions, with language, with descriptions of how parties interact with each other. And so you're effectively taking humans from that middle layer and instead replacing it with defined cost structures and pricing models that you know about going in advance. And so with DeFi, when it comes to swapping between individuals, peer-to-peer, or to pools of funds, then you've got a whole load more ability than you would have just operating certainly in the traditional finance sector. And DeFi on Cardano over and above some of the other ecosystems, the difference really is in the security, the stability, the assuredness that's going on.
Yeah. So and I think this is what we were talking at the beginning about the difference in programming languages, isn't it? Because it's like the definition that it's needed, in Haskell also means, as you were saying, that it's a lot more difficult to have ambiguity, and this is where a lot of the Solidity projects have been compromised, because the language is not capable of having that level of definition. And so it's not so much about how good the developers are in writing a program for Ethereum or a program for Cardano, but it's actually at the base of the ecosystem itself. Kind of like it's a structural level, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you've got that high bar you have to get over before you can put together an app like that in Cardano. And if you're coming in with one of these other languages, then you're using libraries that are based on the work that's already been done. So that chance of shooting yourself in the foot is far much reduced within Cardano development than it is elsewhere. So yeah, it's got some real advantages.
Fantastic. Now, the other big thing in DeFi, obviously, is something that is fairly new as well in Cardano, is what brings money from the traditional system to to a blockchain, which is kind of like generally stable coins. Now, again, tell us how Cardano is, when were stable coins introduced, and then how are these developing now in the Cardano ecosystem?
So in terms of capital, so the amount of money that's tied up in the stable coins, that's probably Cardano's one of Cardano's weakest areas. In terms of technical abilities of the stablecoin infrastructure within Cardano, that's one of its huge strengths. So we've got, you've all probably heard, if you're aware of crypto at all, about the Terra and Luna collapse from a couple of years ago. That was before the FTX scandal and really triggered the start of the last bear market. That collapse sucked millions out of people's holdings, and that was a token that was trying to Terra Luna was a token infrastructure that was trying to create an algorithmic stablecoin. So an algorithmic stablecoin is kind of the gold standard of where we want to go. Stepping outside for a second, we've got our money system, which is got a reserve currency, which at the moment is the dollar. So your transactions really globally are all tied back to how much your local currency is worth against the dollar, and that sort of standard is what we're all working to, and that's always going to be the case. Always going to be a reserve currency within digital currencies. We still need to reference that reserve currency, the dollar in this case, but we need to be able to swap that out easily when the next reserve currency comes along, or preferably we work with an asset that is pegging itself to maybe the price of the current reserve currency, but is collateralizing itself based on several other tokens around the ecosystem. So if you think of like BRICS, which is the new threatening currency made up of the block of Brazil, Russia, China, India, colluding to create this new currency, which I'm sure Luca will know a lot more about than I do. But that is sort of taking the power, the domestic produce power of those nations and putting it into a new currency to try and beat the current reserve currency, which is the United States. And
also the difference, explain a little bit the difference between, traditional stable coins that we all know, like Tether and USDC, and the algorithmic stable coins, and there's a big difference there.
Yeah. So within Cardano, you've got JED, which was the first stable coin, and that's an algorithmic one. So it's using the price of or the value that's within multiple currencies to actually back up the value of that token, and it pegs itself to the price of the dollar, but it could also peg itself to the price of the yen in the dystopian future or something like that. That's the sort of algorithmic side of things. Very flexible, very powerful, but a bit scary in terms of it's a new way of working because it's all tied up in code. That code has to be 100% accurate to sustain, and it has to be able to stand its maintain its peg within a very volatile ecosystem, particularly as we're in this small cap territory. And so, Terra Luna faced a threat, it depegged, and all its value got sucked away instantly. JED is sort of working in that same risky space, but is doing much better. It had a trial run through the bull bear cycle for the last 4 years already in the Ergo blockchain. So the technology has been tried and tested on Ergo. It's now got it on Cardano as well, JED. So that's one to keep an eye on. On the other side of things, we've got fiat-backed stablecoins, which are you're probably more familiar with Tether USDT or USDC from Circle. And so these are stablecoins that are pegged to the dollar, and they maintain that peg by effectively purporting to have $1 in the bank for every dollar that's minted on chain. And so that's the much more tried and tested method of having a stable coin digital currency. And so Cardano now has that in the form of USDM. Mehen is the project behind it. Again, a community-based project, guys that I've been working with in workshops over the past 3 years, really know their stuff, coming from the traditional finance sector, have put together this plan for, let's create a fiat-backed stablecoin that is owned and operated by a private company, regulated in the United States, but actually actually has verification of that dollar in the bank as an open way. So they've got a third-party oracle. Charlie 3 is checking that bank balance and verifying that the volume of fiat dollars on chain has been minted. And Mehen, as the operating team, really are outside the loop on that. They can't restrict that information flow between Charlie 3, an independent organization, and the bank account. They can just have more money put into that bank account and mint dollars whenever that happens. So USDM is looking really exciting in terms of its your confidence in that, it's doing what it says it is. But at the moment, it's small in terms of volume. So it's got about 250,000 last time I checked, $1,000 of USDM.
It's a very new, very new project.
Launched in the last month. Yeah, so very
as you mentioned that you were talking about, we can move on to maybe interoperability now, and we all understand that in the end, the projects that will be successful in terms of layer 1 projects are the ones that learn to work together with others, because although there are the maxis, the Bitcoin maxi, Ethereum maxis, I think there's going to be like the one ring that's going to dominate them all, but the reality is more like there's going to be a variety of blockchain catering to different interests. So and you were talking, for example, DJET is a good example. It's a project on Cardano that is being developed by another blockchain, Coti, which is an independent blockchain that concentrates on payments. But how does Cardano then how do you see the future? How is Cardano working with other projects like Coti, for example, or with, there are talks, and we were discussing it last week very briefly about Cardano now working together with Polkadot, to start developing what we kind of the gold standard that we can expect, like a Wi-Fi moment where it doesn't really matter which wallet you have or which blockchain your assets are on, or being able to use them seamlessly then in the blockchain world.
Yeah, that's what the real approach has been from the very, very outset. Is interoperability is the sort of the key thing to actually get mass adoption. And so, Charles, as we were saying right at the start, Charles' approach was that we need to onboard, the establishment that exists as it is. We need to get them using digital currencies because it's the way of the future. And if we can, reset the rules within that ecosystem to be far more fair and, less prone to corruption, then we're onto a winner. And so interoperability has always been the mindset from the beginning. So within Cardano, we've got Milkomeda sidechain, which is effectively a layer 2 solution for Cardano, built by DC Spark, which are the team who actually did the Yoroi wallet within the Emergo business. They separated out into their own development firm, and they launched Milkomeda, and that Milkomeda sidechain is an Ethereum virtual machine compatible sidechain. So that opens up the whole Ethereum ecosystem to be able to interoperate with the Cardano blockchain very simply. And so we've got DEXs like Wing Riders, which can swap your Ethereum tokens with Cardano tokens or within the same user interface. So that interoperability is there. It's really slick. Unfortunately, from the pure ones within the Cardano world, they were burnt a bit by Wing Riders because their side of the Ethereum side of that bridge got a hack, and so that makes that lost them a whole lot of liquidity effectively, which is a shame. But again, because of the fundamental choice of using UTXOs, Cardano has a unique opportunity to really work and interoperate with Bitcoin. Now, the Bitcoin governance structure is really small, really shallow, very inbred, unfortunately, and really hates every other chain. They consider themselves to be, above and beyond anyone else. So it's very hard to work with them. However, that doesn't stop you working at technological level. And so one of the teams has been building on Cardano, funded by Project Catalyst, which is the innovation fund within Cardano, Fluid Tokens. They offer a lending borrowing platform on Cardano. And they really got deep, dive deep into UTXO management by producing that. And they've now realized the similarities and the capabilities that are possible with the Bitcoin blockchain natively. And so they've just launched a NFT marketplace. So on Bitcoin this last year, NFT suddenly became a thing. And so we've now got a Fluid Tokens, which is a Cardano team, building out a rune stone market for Bitcoin ordinals on chain. Yeah. I've got all these projects in my browser, and I'll probably go over some of these in the Cardano Q&A, which follows on from this afterwards, rather than just trying to share screen, because we're going through a lot here.
Definitely, we're running out of time. There's a couple of things that I wanted to cover before. I mean, if you're all okay, you just stay in another 5 minutes so we can cover these. There's a couple of things. You kind of mentioned another big thing from Charles Hoskinson in January for Cardano is the amount of investment they put into governance. Okay, so if we can briefly talk about that, and then we go into the fun thing that you started mentioning, where everybody maybe at the beginning got interested in blockchain because they saw pictures of cats and dogs pixelated, on the blockchain. So we talk about NFTs as well and how the NFTs technology on Cardano again differs, because that's a fundamental difference as well in usability. What you can include in Cardano NFTs that you can't include in the Ethereum standard NFTs.
Yeah. So tying together interoperability, governance, which are the dry, boring areas of blockchain.
And we have sorry, just to interrupt you for a second. We actually have used the Cardano governance to launch some of the investment projects that we have launched in AIW, that you manage as well. So we have used that decentralized governance that Cardano enables ourselves.
Yeah. And so the governance side of Cardano is growing at massive pace. This is a year, this is the era where control of the blockchain will be handed over from IOG, Cardano Foundation, and Emurgo, which are the holders of the Genesis keys. They're going to be handed over to community groups. And we've got several sort of pockets of people around the world working on that at the moment. And that's going to be the real, gold stamp standard in terms of proving that we are not a SEC, security, but we are a commodity and open system that's available for anybody and everybody to use, because there are no private organizations managing that, the control of the chain anymore in any way, shape, or form. So that's an exciting thing governance wise. Polkadot is the other sort of real leader in this space. They've got a great infrastructure for governance. And so it's natural then for Cardano ecosystem to adopt, and they're much further down the road than Cardano are in terms of some of the things that they do. So, and they've got technology layers built up. Substrate within Polkadot is a valuable technology layer stack that we are now adopting and using. We've got working groups called unifiers which are taking the sort of ambassadors from Cardano, the ambassadors from Polkadot, bringing them together to work on let's explore, let's engage the teams that are working in different areas of governance and tech stacks, and bring them together. So Polkadot are adopting some Cardano technology, Cardano adopting some Polkadot technology, and that's where the interoperability really works really well. And governance is key to making all of this work together, because if you've got rules on one chain, starting to work with rules on another, then we need to be able to accommodate, understand, and work with those rules. So yes, that's an exciting area. Much more difficult to sort of get your head round unless you're on that mindset from a developer perspective, but it really, really important.
That links also with identity, doesn't it?
Yeah, strongly with identity. Really, how do you make decisions as a community of 10,000 people, and if you don't know who anybody is, everybody's staying anonymous. And so this is where identity really comes in, and things like self-sovereignty and identities are really crucial. Zero knowledge proofs, so you can obscure and hide people, but still have that surety that their vote is their vote. You don't have double voting and all sorts of things coming on, and so governance is really just about making decisions, making good decisions together, and that's key to it. There's a whole load there that could go into. But
it's the non-sexy investment into crypto, because you have to spend all this money to put these blocks into place that nobody sees really.
No, exactly. The unsung heroes are the guys in conference rooms shouting about the minutiae of parameter decision making. But it's a big,
unfortunately, when you talk about the real world, these are the kind of technologies that need to be in place. Unless one of the first users for blockchain, there would be, obvious, especially now as we go in the US election, is if we could run elections on blockchain, it would be, a lot simpler to prove that everything is above board, which you can do right now. Half of the American population think that the last election was a scam, But again, to be able to do that, we need to have these blocks in place, which again are unsexy and nobody sees, but they need to be there. Now, the last thing, really, because we will now run out of time, is just like mention briefly NFTs, kind of like, everybody's heard about NFTs and doing the last cycle. What's difference is Cardano bringing to the NFT world?
Yeah, so the largest ecosystem for NFTs is Ethereum. Ethereum came up with NFTs after they'd already got their layer one in place, and so they produce NFTs by using smart contracts. So effectively, you're relying on third-party code to define what your NFT is and how it works and how it can be traded, etc. With Cardano, because it was starting much later, working much more slowly, it had the ability to understand NFTs and embed them within that layer one part of the protocol as itself. So there is no smart contract risk when you're interacting with NFTs on Cardano, which is actually a huge advantage, because if you could trust the chain, then you can trust the NFTs on the chain. And when it comes to the real utility, I mean, we're all aware of meme coins and NFTs and pixelized apes selling for millions of dollars and all sorts of weirdness like that in the space. But real utility comes from NFTs as well. NFTs are non-fungible tokens, which is a dry, boring phrase, and that's actually what they're designed for. So NFTs will be the way that we can fractionalize real-world assets on the blockchain, so we can represent ownership of real-world assets on the blockchain.
In a way, Jonathan, is what you mentioned. The last word is actual token. So on Cardano, an NFT is really a token with an issuance of one, as opposed to the ADA, which is a token with an issuing of whatever it is,
45 billion.
Yeah, that's something like that. So that's a technological difference.
Exactly. There is no technological difference between an NFT on Cardano and a native token like ADA. They are one and the same. It's just there's billions of these and there's only one of these NFTs. And so that level of surety that's what you're dealing with when you're dealing with NFTs gives you the ability to then roll that out to fractionalized assets and things like that. And the potential there is huge. This year is going to be great for real world assets. And there is already diamonds on Cardano blockchain. There are property projects rolling out land rights, and we've got more and more things coming all the time. I mentioned about the Bitcoin ordinals are now cross-compatible with Cardano through Fluid tokens. So yeah, we've got a very bright future.
Okay, no, Jonathan, I would say a huge thank you for your contribution today, and I'm sure that talk for everybody. I'm thinking that I've truly enjoyed this session, and also is there's so much to delve into, so much to learn. And one thing I want everybody to realize that today was taking like an hour and a few minutes, and we've been talking about this. We just barely scratched the surface.
Hmm.
So
Didn't
really,
cover the
really, we're just really talking basics. Although it could be things that have gone over your head, this is just the first layer. Really simple. We try to make it as simple as we can, but it is just scraping the surface. And Jonathan, what you do is like every Friday, you run a Cardano-based session that starts pretty much straight after this one. So I encourage everybody that hasn't already been on it to come and follow that, because you're able then to go, deeper into single aspects of the Cardano blockchain without having to reference, everything else as we've been doing today, and actually delve a lot deeper and actually going into how to do things as well. Because there is a big difference is knowing that something can be done and knowing how it's done as well, and being able to do it yourself. So if you don't mind, Jonathan, if you don't mind posting the link as usual in the chat box, and all you need to do if you want to go and follow it, just click on the link. And I will suggest maybe at some stage, maybe in a month's time or something, we can have another session on this where we've taken this as given already, and we can actually go a little bit deeper into some of these rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Assuming that everybody's listened to this session, know what we're talking about, and we're going a little bit deeper. So if you're happy with with this, then we can schedule that in for sometimes in June, yeah, and we'll go in deeper, and then again, guys, follow the sessions, the Cardano sessions for Jonathan, and also have the old sessions on Discord as well. They're available to watch on there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a YouTube channel for the videos too. Yeah, thanks for that, Luca. Great ever.
No, fantastic. Thanks everyone, and so have a fantastic weekend, and I'll catch up with you all next week.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was great. Thanks so much
Thank you.
for meeting you,
Welcome.
Jonathan.